So welcome everyone to We Are Endurance webinar series. I want to thank Dave Williams of Velo Assurance. Dave is one of our sponsors and he insures bikes. And today we're going to be talking about bike insurance. If you need it, do you really need it? What happens if you have the bike on the back of the car, who's responsible? So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Dave Williams. Dave, if you can just, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and Velo Insurance.
Velo Insurance, bicycle insurance, was a concept that back in 2008, I had just purchased my first mountain bike and I'd spent $1,000 on it. And I'm driving home with it, trying to figure out how to explain to my wife that I just spent $1,000 on a bicycle. And it's just gone from there. We took the concept to an insurance underwriter. They're a specialty in recreation insurance, Markel American. We took the concept to them, worked with them, and we started issuing Markel's Velo Assurance cyclist policies in 2012.
What's interesting, Dave, is that, I came to you, I had homeowners insurance, and I went to my homeowner insurance guy and I said to him, I just bought an expensive bike. Could you underwrite this bike? And he said, absolutely not. He said, we're not responsible for bikes. You'll have to find a bike insurance company. And that's how I found you. So can you talk a little bit about what homeowners insurance actually covers, and also car insurance? I mean, does it cover the bike?
Morris, you had a question before we jump in there?
I've done a little research on this. Well, you're the expert, Dave, but I did want to say that I actually referred Velo Insurance to my local bike shop. Because I used you guys for a trip. And after I used you guys for a trip, it was so great, I referred to my local bike shop because I see that you partner with local bike shops. So that's all.
And for that, we thank you.
Sure, I hope they signed up for you. I don't know if they did.
It's brand recognition now after 10 years. The brand recognition is pretty well out there. Velo Assurance gets used as a noun quite often. It's synonymous with bicycle insurance. So we took a pretty basic standard piece of insurance and made it better. We took away all of the silly restrictions that homeowners insurance places on bikes. And I think most homeowners policies probably cover a bike up to about $500, which 20 years ago, a $500 bike was a nice bike. Today, it might buy you the seat.
Yeah.
So, there's a big picture to consider here. The one thing insurance companies dislike are frequency of claims. Your kitchen could catch on fire. They'll write you a check for $100,000 and be happy to insure you again next year. If you put in 3 bicycle theft claims for $1,000 a piece, they'll cancel you. And once you've been canceled by an insurance company, it's very difficult to get to convince another insurance company that they should take on the risk, because you've just proved to them that you will make small claims, and insurance companies dislike small, they dislike frequency. So the big picture is our policy won't affect any of your other insurances. The policy covers the bike anywhere in the US or Canada without depreciation, no matter whether you're riding it or whether it's on the back of your car and it falls off, it's still covered. That's a very nice picture of a smoke detector.
Hi, Lisa. So, talk to us, Dave, about what's going on with the airlines, right? So right now, if we want to bring our bike on the airlines, does the airline cover it? Do you, I mean, how does that work? What if they lose the bike or damage the bike?
The airlines in the last year have begun getting passengers who are bringing bikes on the flight with them to sign off on a $500 maximum damage. So when you hand your bike over to the airline and TSA, and let's face it, the airline doesn't open up your bike bag, TSA does, and TSA is not staffed by a group of high value, knowledgeable cyclists. They have a job to do. They get in, they get out, they close up the bag. They don't pay a whole lot of attention to the way things may have moved around inside the bag. We, for quite a while now, the Velosurance has been using do not double stack stickers on our bike bags. When we travel, we put at least a dozen do not double stack stickers all over the bag. And Amazon will deliver 500 of them to you for $22. So use as many as you want because it's a lifetime supply.
So what exactly is a double stack sticker?
It tells the airline not to throw your bike bag on the bottom and put 10 suitcases on top of it. Because a 14-pound frame doesn't react well to having 300 pounds of, I mean, let's face it, 300 pounds of luggage is only six suitcases. And you've got 300 people on the plane, each one of them carrying a 50-pound suitcase. You want to make sure that your bike bag ends up on the top, not on the bottom. Apart from standing there asking, the best thing you can do is cover the bag with stickers that alert whoever's handling it to at least take a little bit of care with it.
So Lisa said, I recently, I recently hit a new bike, so I purchased Velo insurance.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Okay, so talk to us about, so now we have the plane. What happens, I remember about a year or so ago, a friend of mine, she had the bike on the outside of her car and the bike fell off the car. Does car insurance cover that?
Yes, we cover it.
You cover it.
Yeah, if you're looking at a damaged bike and that damage happened by accident, it is covered. There's no arguments there.
Now let's talk about tri-bike transport or one of these, transport.
Sure.
Do you need extra insurance if you go through tri-bike transport?
No.
Or would Velo insurance cover that as well?
Velosurance covers the bike at all times in transit.
Okay.
So, and in transit, this is a situation that happened a couple of years ago. Commuters who ride to the bus stop, put their bike on the front of the bus, get on the bus until their particular stop, sitting there watching somebody at the next bus stop, watching somebody take their bike off the rack and pedal away on it. Nothing more frustrating because you're not catching that person. That is a covered loss by Velosurance because you have handed your bike over to a transit authority and that bike is in transit when it was stolen. And I can tell you this, that transit authorities won't allow you to lock your bike to the bus because they have a schedule to keep, and locking the bike to the bus just slows them down.
That's a good question. So in Long Beach, Long Island, there's been a whole thing going on about bikes, and they don't want you to strap your bike up to anything in the town. And if you do, like a parking pole or any kind of pole, they will confiscate it, throw it in the back of the truck and take it to the yard. What
Wow.
happens if they do that and the bike gets damaged?
It would be covered.
Okay.
But yeah, there are city ordinances that say that you cannot lock your bike to any city utility, including stop signs, parking, and excuse me. And the cities don't go a long way to providing bolted down bike racks. So if you're a commuter, it's kind of tough to know what to do with your bike during the work day while you're inside and the bike is locked up outside. Unfortunately, those bikes become targets, and you know it. Nobody is going to mess with some guy wielding a 3-foot long bolt cutter. So the bike is, yes, it's obviously being stolen. The police are nowhere to be found, and the general public are not going to mess with a thief.
My
Now-
biggest fear on that is I've got like one of these flatbed, to put my bike on, and the rack, and I keep thinking somebody's just going to come by and just unclip it and take the bike and scoot off. I mean, have you ever heard of anything like that happening?
I was driving through Miami. I saw a movement in my rear view mirror, looked back, and there were 2 kids trying to take the bike off the rack behind me
Wow.
While you were driving?
while I was at a stoplight.
Yeah.
So I put the car in reverse and I started backing up. The kids scattered, and at that point, the motorist behind me decided to sound his horn because I was backing up. No interest in letting me know that my bike was about to be stolen, but if it was going to involve his car, he all of a sudden became a concerned citizen.
Well, maybe he was in cahoots with the kids.
So yeah, those things happen. When I'm traveling, I lock the bike to the rack.
So Dave, wasn't there a term on your policy that says the bikes have to be locked in order to be covered? That you have to have you have to do some kind of diligence to protect your bike.
Yes, exactly. When the bike is away from home and it is left unattended, then it needs to be locked to an immovable object, something that can't be picked up and carried away with the bike. Now, when the policy was written, it was never conceived that bikes could be stolen by threat, by force. But as we've seen recently, particularly a couple of years ago during the mostly peaceful riots, we had clients who were knocked off their bike and their bike was taken from them. And we've covered this under the forcible entry clause of the policy.
Now, as a touring cyclist, touring during the day. So most of the time I'm just, running and having breakfast or something. I'll just go put my bike outside. I'm not really locking it. So you're saying if I'm not locking it when I go to have breakfast, it's not covered. And then at night, put my tent up and I'm sleeping. What would happen if it was stolen while I was sleeping? And I don't know, I guess I could lock it up. I don't generally. I didn't lock my bicycle up for 90 days going cross country. I'm not going to lock it up. You're saying if you don't lock it, it's not covered.
If it's not locked to an immovable object, and it is out of your possession. In other words, if somebody was to take it from you by threat, it's covered. But if you just lie it on the ground, crawl inside your tent and go to sleep and someone steals it at midnight, it's not covered. Lock it to a tree, lock it to a picnic bench, lock it to something that needs a crime needs to be committed to get it.
Lisa has a question here in the chat. She says she's traveling to a race. She has a custom paint on her frame. Is there an issue with her paint during if there's an issue with her paint during the transport, will it be covered?
Okay, because cosmetic damages are not covered. So if the bike were just to receive an abrasion, that does not change the structural integrity or the safety of the bike. This is not covered. This is like a door ding on your car. But if the damage goes into the if it's a carbon frame, if the damage goes into the carbon, and then it needs to be repaired, and at that point, the paint becomes part of the claim.
What if there's an issue with the components? What if there's a damage to a derailleur or to a spoke or to a functional part of the bike?
All accidental damage over and above your deductible is a covered loss. So we insure the entire bike. Everything that is attached to the frame that has a cycling specific use is a covered component. So the computer is covered, your iPhone is not covered. If you were bike packing, the panniers are covered because they're cycling specific, but the sleeping bag and tent stored inside the panniers are not covered because they are not cycling specific.
Whoa.
All make sense?
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
Well, we are a bicycle insurance company.
What's the average? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we insure bicycles and everything attached to bicycles.
What's the average deductible?
The
Because I
deductible,
can't remember.
the deductible choices are 200, 300, or 500. The most commonly chosen is 300. If you are insuring a bike for use in competition, the deductible is 500.
Now, is the Garmin GPS and all the bike lights that are connected to the bike, are those covered?
Yes. Cameras, GoPro cameras are covered. Everything, if it is cycling specific, it is covered. And while a GoPro camera can be used for other things, if it's on the bike, it's being used as a safety device. And we have a lot of commuters who have forward and rear facing cameras for their daily commute.
Oh. Now, Dave, I noticed that you're reselling the Markel insurance. And before I knew about Velo, I actually took out a policy with Markel. Why should I go through Velo and not just direct with Markel?
Same policy, same premium, same everything, except when you call Velo Assurance, you get to talk to another cyclist. When you call Markel, you get to talk to an insurance company.
I have a question. I recently got the insurance and I was asked to send 3 pictures, one of them being of the ID number of the bike. The issue is that it was a custom frame, so it doesn't have any of those markers on it. So I sent in the ID number that I got from the company, but there's nothing on the bike with that number.
Okay, here is the brutal truth. The only time a serial number comes into play is when a bike is stolen and recovered. And you see this? This is how many bikes we've ever recovered.
Yeah,
So
I believe it.
the insurance companies, being insurance companies, they want a value in every field. And one of the fields that they want a value in is the serial number.
Okay.
We provide that to them. In the case when there is no serial number, we, as with custom bikes, we use the words "no serial number assigned." This is something the insurance company accepts. But recovery of a stolen bike, and I hate to be cold and heartless, but when a client calls and says my bike got stolen, I have to bite my tongue before I tell them just to start shopping for another bike, because they're never going to get their bike back.
Now, are you covering replacement value or book value?
We insure the invested value. That's how much money in total would you lose if the bike was to become a total loss.
Okay.
So basically what you paid for it.
What you paid for it plus whatever you added to the bike.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
whatever components we upgrade or
Yes.
add
Yeah.
to it. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people will buy the base model and then put their favorite wheel set on it. Well, that base model may have cost $3,000, and so did the wheel set. Now you have a $3,000 bike that's worth $6,000.
Okay.
Dave, do you have any recommendations on a travel case if you are taking the bike on the plane? Like, is there something that you know, that you would recommend?
Everyone has their favorites. We use the Jetpack, sold by BIKND. It's a little known company, but they really sat down and engineered a wonderful travel case. And they took our suggestions and put extra wheels on it, because trying to carry it through an airport just with two wheels didn't work well. In fact, one of the guys took a skateboard and put it under his. So BIKND, it's like I said, little known company, but a bunch of smart guys engineering it, designing it, and running the company.
Yes.
So with bike insurance, right? I mean, I'm covering both of them. I have two bikes that I have through you. Does it pay to cover an inexpensive bike?
It depends on what you're using it for, but there's a net 20% discount when you put a second bike on the policy. So we often see someone who has a $8,000 bike who puts a $1,000 bike on the policy, and the premium goes down.
Interesting.
So it's just one of those idiosyncrasies that the first time it happened, it surprised us, and then we realized why it was happening. And so if someone has an inexpensive bike, put it on the policy with a $200 deductible, it's going to go on there at little or no premium.
I know you already covered the travel issue with the airlines. But if you have Velo insurance, for instance, I have a friend of mine, and she didn't tell me until after she got it back. She went to France recently with her new S-Works Ethos, and it was lost. It was lost by the airlines. She did get it back, but what if it was never recovered and you had Velo insurance?
We would write a check on day 31, and
Wow.
and that our client would be shopping for a new bike.
I'm telling her. They tell her to get it.
Unfortunately, we don't cover the bag. We don't cover the travel bag because that's not attached to the bike. It's the $500 probably won't buy a new travel bag, but that's what the airline can be found responsible for, $500.
Mm,
So
help a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've recently done a little bit of research because of the proliferation of bikes being lost by airlines. I've done a little bit of research into luggage GPS, and interestingly enough, there's quite a bit of it out there. It goes everywhere from air tags through to some very sophisticated GPS units. And the idea behind something like that being the airline says, well, Hillary, we know your bag is somewhere, we just don't know where it is. And it might be nice for you to be able to say, well, it's sitting in a warehouse in New Jersey over by the airport, and it's in this side of that warehouse. Can you go and get it? Now you've lit a fire under somebody, chances are that they're going to go and find it.
Mhm.
Airlines almost always find the bike, but that doesn't help you when you're on a 2-week trip to Spain,
Right.
Mhm.
and your bag is lost in an airport in the US somewhere.
Right.
Especially if there's a language barrier and you're overseas with your bike. I mean, that was always my biggest fear for traveling with it. But because it's custom, it's like I want to ride with it because other bikes aren't as
Sure.
comfortable.
Well,
So
and you would be shocked at the options available to you if you wanted to rent a bike. Just for the mere weight factor, it's not going to be a happy changeover. But you know what will happen is 28 days later, you're sitting at home, there's a knock on the door, and it's the airline delivering your bike to you without any explanation.
one last question. When I got the insurance, I estimated the value of my components based off of what I had, what they were currently on the market for. If I find that like the price of anything on the bike changes or increases, can I change that on my insurance?
No. We go back to the invested value. How much money would it take to make you whole again? Not to provide a profit and not to provide a loss.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions for Dave? Dave, maybe you can provide us with some best practices, to make sure that nothing happose to our bikes. I mean, our bikes are like
Okay, so
very special to all of us, I think.
for those people who live where they have a garage, I encourage you to go on YouTube and look at the 6-second garage door break-in, because it is shockingly easy to get into anyone's garage. For that reason, in my garage, I have a security camera, and I also lock my bikes to a utility shelf inside the garage. When I'm traveling, I get to the hotel. Both of my bikes are locked to the rack. I go in, check in, put my bags in the room, go back out, unlock one bike, leave the other one locked up, wheel it past the front desk into the hotel and repeat with my second bike. The bikes live with me in the hotel room. They're covered.
Do you lock them in the hotel room?
No, I just make sure that the door is locked every time I leave. So it's treat your bike like your wallet.
Yeah.
You know, think about, would I leave my wallet sitting outside the hotel while I go in and check in? No. So
Same with
it,
the cell phone. I mean, I was in the exhibits industry for a long time, and you don't leave things like a TV screen or something like that that costs thousands of dollars. You don't leave that unwatched. You don't leave your cell phone unwatched.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true.
let's see, what else is there? Travel is the big thing with tri bikes, and being able to protect them against a lot of thefts are just theft of opportunity. You know, you have somebody who you would rather not see on your bike walking through a parking lot, and they don't know that the bike is worth $12,000. They just see a nice bike, and they see a bike sitting there on a bike rack, and there's no one around. It pick it up and it's gone, and who knows where it ends up. There was a ring of bike thieves in Denver over the last couple of years that they've now they busted this ring, but we had a client whose bike was stolen out of his garage, out of his locked garage, while he was at work, and that bike ended up on a bike sales site in Mexico City. And the FBI got tangled up in it. It became a People for Bikes got behind it. It became a pretty big thing, but you don't think of a bike ring going around stealing bikes, but I can tell you that the places that they were stolen from, you would think they'd be totally safe outside a bike store.
I have a question about the bike chain, right? So, we all have nice bikes and nobody really wants to ride with a chain around it to make it heavier. Do you have any recommendations that something that's relatively light, that's not going to put that much weight on the bike, that you could use?
Okay, so the policy says that the bike should be secured to an immovable object with a security locking device designed to secure a bicycle, which is a pretty open-ended statement, because we all know that we could walk out of Walmart tomorrow with a $15 lock that says bicycle lock on it, and it won't stop anything. But it does qualify for the policy. So there is an interesting lock out there called an auto lock, OTTO lock. It's light. It's not perfectly secure, but it is a lot more difficult to cut than a skinny little piece of cable. It's
Are you talking
easily,
about the belt lock?
yes, it's easily carried on the bike.
That's like only if your bike is in eyesight, like you're sitting at a cafe outside and your bike is right there and you've locked it.
Like I said, a lot of thefts are thefts of convenience. And if you're not going to be running after somebody in your riding shoes if they're pedaling away on your bike. So you're right. Cut the convenience factor out of it with something like an auto lock, and all of a sudden it becomes it takes the convenience factor out of it, and chances are that while you're sitting there staring at your bike drinking a cuppa, the bike will stay there.
Interesting.
But on mine, on my car, I use a 16 millimeter chain that is covered with a canvas cover so it doesn't scratch the frame. And a 16 millimeter case hardened chain cannot be cut with most bolt cutters. But I can tell you this, when I pick it up from the back of the car and throw it in the back seat, I don't want to carry it any more than 5 feet. It's a monster chain. But I'm encouraging the thief to move on to the cable. Leave my chain lock bike alone.
I'd also just like to say, recently, there was a race in the city, and it was there were a bunch of professionals were there. Legion was there, Best Buddies, all these groups, and somebody actually walked away with one of their bikes because there were so many bikes out and people just weren't paying attention and didn't think that at a race somebody would take your bike. They did. Coincidentally, though, social media was very powerful and they found the bike.
Wow.
But I mean, that was rare. But I will say that I've been at events, even Fibora Bike Tour, where bikes were stacked up together and somebody walked away with the bike on top.
Wow.
So we take it a habit. I bring a cable with me and a small U-lock. And if I know we're going to be going to an event like that, then I'll just put all the bikes together. And we're not too far away from them.
Lisa gives a really good point there. So before a triathlon, usually the day before or sometimes 2 days before, you got to leave the bike in transition. I mean, so if it's stolen out of transition, you're not covering it?
The bike is covered for up to 24 hours in a transition point.
Okay.
So unless you're a really slow swimmer, 24 hours should be plenty. So, and
Okay.
that has happened probably 8 years ago in Tempe. 2 or 3 bikes were stolen out of a transition area, which would surprise you when you get to the transition area and you're looking to where you left your bike and it's gone. But in this situation, there was video footage of it, and the 2 young men were caught with the bikes and arrested, but doesn't help you on your bike ride. Other than that, the only other incident that we've had in transition areas, which is kind of a shameful thing, is that someone had some like power tap pedals stolen, which, from a bunch of like-minded competitors, I was pretty shocked that actually happened.
I could see like the bike computer disappearing, because that's easy. You just clip it out.
Yeah. Which
That's-
once again, for a group of like-minded athletes, to see anything stolen is shocking.
That brings
Anyway.
up a good point. If the bike isn't stolen, but just things off the bike are stolen, are those covered if they exceed the value of the deductible?
Yes.
So a bike computer is stolen, and the bike computers now could cost, let's say, $699, and you've got a $300 deductible, you'll get paid.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and if the computer, I encourage everyone to spend $10 and put that little strap on the computer and attach it to a cable somewhere. So if the bike does fall over, the computer remains attached to the bike. But it's a very common item in a crash to go missing.
So how do we document that it was stolen? We just call you, say it was stolen, and you say, all right, here's a check.
Yeah, I had it. And now any theft requires a police report.
Oh.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So if it's vandalism, you can report it to the police. It's not necessary. Uh, we have had occasion where bikes were not able to be stolen, but the thief got upset with it and beat the bike up. So that vandalism is covered. Theft of the bike or from the bike is covered with a police report. If it's lost in a crash, it's just a matter of saying, hey, you know, I had this garment on my bike in the crash, it disappeared, and here's the receipt for it. Accidents require a bike shop estimate for the repair and pictures of the damage. Subject to the deductible, we send you the balance. Same deal with a police report.
Well, it seems like the best part of Velo insurance is being able to call you and you guide us through a claim process.
It's we've seen everything. There's probably no situation out there that we haven't come across that may or may not have caused a claim, but you only know how good your insurance is and once you have a claim.
Yeah.
And if you look around, if you look around for anyone upset with Velo insurance, they're few and far between.
Yeah.
And Markel has been a fantastic partner for us. Prior to Velo insurance with our general insurance agency, Markel was always a standout company that looked for a way to pay a claim, rather than a lot of other companies looking for a way not to pay the claim. And they continue to do that today. They are a very, their mission is to do everything possible to keep their client happy.
Can you just talk about different areas around the country, like, you know, and premiums? I mean, are the premiums the same if you live in Washington State or California or wherever?
The country's split up into 3 zones: North, Central, and South. If you live in Minnesota, you'll pay less premium than you will if you lived in San Diego. And if you live in, let's say, South Carolina, you're in the middle. So we know that you're not riding 12 months of the year in Wisconsin, whereas we do know that in San Diego, you have the opportunity to ride any day of the year.
Excellent. So it's highly customized. So New York is in the middle, I guess.
I want you to hold on to your seat, but New York has the lowest rates in the country.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Now, what happens? This is a crazy question, right?
Because nobody rides in New York. I don't know. Except us.
Well, in the winter, Dave, where a lot of us are riding on Swift, right? Where, you know, we're connected to a computer, and say for some crazy reason, the bike falls over, cracks the frame, whatever. Again, I just, you know, want to clarify with you. So that would be covered as part of.
Yes. Excuse me. Real life scenario. I got a call from a client one day. He's kind of laughing, and he said, "Dave, I think I have a claim." I go, "What happened?" He goes, "I crashed in my living room." Is it covered? And I said, you know, tell me how you crashed in the living room. He said, I was doing 28 miles an hour. My sweat towel around my neck slipped off, went down into the drivetrain, hit the drivetrain, the bike stopped, and it threw me off onto the living room floor.
Oh my God.
So the chain ring, cassette, derailleur, all destroyed.
Mm.
And he got rug burns.
That's all right. You don't cover the medical part of this.
So yeah, can it happen? Yes. Does it happen often? No, but when it does happen, it's covered.
Do you cover trainer? Do you cover non-outdoor trainers, only indoor trainers?
No. No, there's a difference between a trainer and a bicycle.
Yeah.
We're here covering bicycles, so that's what it is.
Well, this has been really great. Does anybody have any final questions before we wrap this up?
Yeah, can you post his contact info? Because I think
Yep.
my group would also be interested in this. It took me a while. Well, it took me getting this bike to pull the trigger on insurance, and I actually feel a lot better now about, spending even more money on my bike. But I'm happy I made the purchase. I mean, just a peace of mind.
Absolutely, 100% agree. Okay, yeah, no problem. Anybody else?
Good to meet all you guys. You know how to get a hold of me. If you call, hit the billing button in the automated attendant tree, just hit billing and that'll come through to me.
Great. Thank you very much, Dave, for your time. Thank you all for being here today.
Thanks
And
for coordinating, Hillary. It's awesome.
I hope you all have a good week.
Thank
All right,
you.
guys, take care
Bye-bye.
now. Bye-bye.